It's dawn in Damascus. Inside a small mosque, 17 men pray in perfect unison. At the front, their sheikh leads the Fajr prayer. His Arabic flows like water, his recitation of the Quran flawless. Every gesture carries the weight of a man who has lived these words his entire life. He is a Jewish mathematics teacher from Israel. He does not believe in any God. And right now, in a bunker beneath Jerusalem, intelligence officers are listening to his every breath through a microphone embedded in his wooden prayer beads. The men kneeling behind him are an extremist cell in the final stages of planning a mass casualty bombing. The operative leading their prayers, known to them as Sheikh Ibrahim, has 72 hours to find out when and where that attack will happen. This operation represents the sharpest edge of counterterrorism. Because violent extremist cells often operate entirely off the grid, they cannot be dismantled through remote surveillance. To stop them, an agency must place a human being inside the room. Standard undercover work relies on a temporary backstory. An officer memorizes a fake name and plays a role for a limited duration. Deep cover espionage in hostile territory requires a different methodology. To infiltrate a paranoid, radicalized cell, an agency does not just teach an operative to act like the enemy. They use a specific set of protocols to systematically overwrite the operative's original identity. This is an examination of the psychological mechanics of that transformation and the specific trade-offs required to replace one persona with another. The transformation began with an 18-month protocol of total isolation. The recruit was moved to an unmapped facility where Hebrew was forbidden. His previous life was severed. His phone was confiscated, and his family was told he had taken a position abroad. Instructors broke down his natural accent syllable by syllable, rebuilding his vocal patterns to eliminate the microscopic markers of a foreign speaker. He spent hours every day on a prayer rug until his hands and knees developed the specific calluses of a devout worshiper. To support his legend as a scholar educated in Cairo, he memorized all 114 surahs of the Quran. He studied classical Arabic and mastered regional jurisprudence, learning to parse theological debates with the familiarity of an academic. Handlers insisted that he find genuine value in the texts he was studying. They believed that if he didn't respect the faith he was imitating, he would never convince the cell members that he shared their convictions. By month 17, a shift occurred. He did not convert, but he developed a technical understanding of the emotional pull of the faith. This allowed him to move past a performance and into complete character immersion. This level of empathy is the mechanism that makes the deception flawless. It also marks the point where the agent's original psychological boundaries begin to erode as the habits of the character start to feel more natural than his own. He entered Damascus alone, staying in a small room and leading Quran study sessions for young men. By answering religious questions with patience and humility, he built a reputation as a harmless spiritual advisor, the perfect cover to draw the attention of violent cells without triggering their suspicion. He transmitted intelligence through biological tradecraft. He would visit a market stall and buy dates from an asset. Hidden inside was a data storage device the size of a pill. The agent would swallow it, allowing the information to bypass any physical checkpoints or pat-downs. Once the body passed the device, he would retrieve it and bury it at a predetermined dead drop. An unseen team would collect it later. This cycle allowed him to pass high-value data without ever using a radio or meeting a handler. His performance was eventually tested in a hostile 2-hour interrogation. The cell leader demanded to know if he believed armed resistance was religiously justified, a question designed to see if the sheikh was a true believer or a government plant. He survived by providing a complex moral answer. He justified defense against oppression, but questioned the killing of innocents. This nuanced position gave the cell the religious validation they were looking for, while reinforcing his status as a principled scholar. The intelligence he gathered revealed a triple bombing plan targeting a crowded civilian marketplace. The attack was synchronized for a Friday morning, the busiest shopping hour of the week. As the agent learned the technical details of the bombs, he also learned the histories of the men building them. He heard accounts of neighborhoods leveled by regime airstrikes and families lost to violence, seeing firsthand how trauma had been leveraged to radicalize them. When a young recruit privately expressed doubt about the operation, the agent's attempt to encourage that hesitation backfired. The cell leader suspected the boy of disloyalty and executed him. a death resulting directly from the agent's undercover manipulation. This event accelerated the agent's internal shift. He stopped dreaming in Hebrew and began responding to his alias even when alone. The cognitive habits of the sheikh, developed to protect the mission, started to operate independently of his original personality. The deep human connection required to maintain his cover had become a liability. To keep the cell's trust after the young man's death, he had to immerse himself further into the role, further blurring his own sense of self. Tel Aviv used the agent's final data dump to coordinate a raid with local security services. The bombs were neutralized, and the core of the cell was taken into custody before they could reach the market. The agent had to maintain his cover throughout the fallout. On the morning of the arrests, he sat in the mosque and performed the role of the shocked and grieving Imam, who had absolutely no idea that his students were extremists. He was extracted across the border that night. By midnight, he was back in a clinical intelligence facility, surrounded by handlers who praised his performance and the hundreds of lives he had saved. During his debriefing, he was professional and thorough, yet he remained emotionally absent. Despite the objective success of the mission, he spoke with the detachment of someone who was still analyzing the events from the perspective of the character he had played. He declined all commendations and eventually left the intelligence service. He attempted to return to his life as a mathematics teacher, but found that he could no longer relate to the people or the routines he had left behind 18 months earlier. He now teaches Arabic studies, living a quiet life that is still punctuated by the habits of his time in Damascus. He still occasionally wakes up for dawn prayers and finds himself thinking in the dialect of the men he betrayed. In the logic of intelligence work, the trade is straightforward. One operative sense of self is a fair price for hundreds of civilian lives. But this story serves as a reminder that when a mission requires an agent to lose themselves completely, the person who returns is often a stranger to their own life.